Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Alrighty, folks. Let's get everything set up here. Make sure we are live. Let's see. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Alrighty, folks. Alrighty, how is everyone doing this afternoon? This is a live severe weather briefing on Hurricane Milton. As of right now, recording this live stream, it has been upgraded to a Category 1 hurricane. Winds probably well over 85 miles an hour now since the last National Hurricane Center observation. I will be doing more updates here starting tomorrow as well, once we get more data coming in from the aircraft recon. These are a couple of their latest missions. They did some flybys earlier this afternoon and evening, which has brought us very important data actually, and it shows some interesting things that Hurricane Milton is already undergoing rapid intensification and development, and we can kind of see that here. They've already picked up some winds on the southern and southeast eye wall of Hurricane Milton exceeding 85 miles an hour. As far as the peak 10-second wind averages. So that is definitely important to note that Hurricane Milton is intensifying, and I do suspect by 1 p.m. tomorrow that this thing will be on the brink of a Category 3, at least a Category 2, with winds at least 100 miles an hour. By the time this time tomorrow, we could be talking about a full-fledged major hurricane. Here is some of their recon aircraft observations, and this is going to be the pressure readings, this blue line right here, and you can see from 19Z, 1920Z, 1940, it's been steadily falling all the way down to about 982, 980. So that is just another sign that Hurricane Milton is intensifying, and it definitely looks impressive this morning. It was really, the center was kind of displaced, but it's really starting to get its act together now. You can see this eye wall starting to wrap around, convection really starting to blow up around that core, and this is what's really going to get it going as it moves eastern. Like I said, by tomorrow afternoon, this thing should be north of the Yucatan Peninsula, and some models are showing, yes, a Category 5 hurricane with winds over 170, 180 miles an hour, and I don't want people to automatically think, oh, well, Florida's going to get slammed by a Cat 5 hurricane. Everything's going to get destroyed. I know there's a lot of clip-based stuff out there, and people been, posting a whole bunch of fake news about this thing, that it's going to destroy the whole west coast of Florida. Everything's going to be inundated. I'm not saying that is not a possibility, but the likelihood of it happening as we're getting new data as of right now is not very likely. But between a Category 3 and a Cat 4 hurricane, there's not going to be much difference as far as impacts go. And I think that depending on where this thing makes landfall is going to make a big difference in the strength of this system. And 90% of the models as of today all show this thing rapidly weakening upon landfall due to two variables, wind shear and dry air. And those are a couple things that I want to go over in this live stream that a lot of people aren't talking about. They're just focusing on it pretty much getting into the middle of the Gulf. Look, Cat 5 hurricane, everyone needs to evacuate. Obviously, if you're along the immediate coastline, yes, definitely evacuate. Storm surge is going to be a big issue depending where this comes in. But here is the satellite imagery, and we can see it's nighttime now, so it kind of diminishes, but all these bubbles you see firing up around the core all of a sudden, that is signs of rapid intensification, especially around this eye wall right here. Definitely not a good sign. As of the 0Z observation, location was located just to the about northwest of the Yucatan Peninsula, about 50 to 75 miles due east of Mexico. And this thing is going to continue to increase speeds. And here's one of the variables that I wanted to talk about right here is the dry air. And this is the latest GFS model, relative humidity. This shows you all the dry air. So the darker browns is going to be drier air. The darker kind of bluish, turquoise, greenish colors are going to indicate moisture. So moisture, good for the storm. Dry air, very bad. This would choke it off. Hurricanes obviously don't do well with dry air. And if we put this into motion here, this is the latest model. This is the 18Z model coming in from the GFS. And we can see that it really holds a decent core together upon landfall, but you can kind of see, right, it goes from a 955, 954, boom, 960, 971, just starts rapidly weakening. Obviously, some of the weakening due to land interaction, but that's most likely due from the wind shear, because you can kind of see at the last moment that some of that dry air getting in on that core, and it's all going to depend. Like if this thing can get down to, if it really became a Category 5 hurricane in the middle of the Gulf and took more of a southern track per se, than getting pulled north, because the further north you go, the higher the wind shear is going to be. So if we go ahead and take a look at the, let's go to the wind shear map here and look at the latest observation. So this is by the GFS 18Z. And if we put this into motion, here's our storm right down here, right? 986. It's actually got a little bit weaker than what the current observations have it on the National Weather Service. And we play this in motion, 982, 967, 964, 959. This one's actually interesting because it almost brings the center right over the north part of the Yucatan, right? And this doesn't show as a strong storm. The GFS actually has, honestly, I think the GFS is underdoing it a little bit this time around, which is kind of weird because the GFS is usually the one model that always likes to paint these worst case scenario pictures, right? But this time it's definitely kind of underdoing it. And if we play this in motion, right, 959, 955, 960, and now watch it. See, this model run's definitely taking it, keeping it on a more southern track. But watch how it's going to get pulled north, right? And at the last minute, see that right there? Boom. Starts getting sucked in north by that jet stream, pulled in 955, 964, 971, just starts getting ripped apart. So if, like I said, if this thing could somehow manage to take a more southern track, more down to the tip of Florida, maybe per se like the Keys way south to Fort Myers, I think this would be a lot worse case scenario as far as the winds, the strength of it. Now, I think the worst case scenario as far as storm surge goes is if this thing honestly gets pulled in near the Tampa Bay area. If this thing gets pulled into the Tampa Bay, all baits are off, especially Sarasota. I mean, we can see the latest track right here has it going directly over Sarasota, which would technically put the Tampa Bay area side on the northern side, so it wouldn't necessarily be the nasty side because all the winds would be going this way, right? Counter or clockwise. And it's really going to depend on counterclockwise, and it's really going to depend on if where this makes landfall, because I mean this thing could easily tick north of Tampa, right? And that would make all the difference in Tampa getting 10 15 more feet of storm surge than they would had if they were on the northern side, right, of the eye wall. Still going to get obviously bad impacts, heavy rainfall, flooding. There's still going to be some type of storm surge, but all that surge at this point, if this held true, would be pushed right down in here into the Cape Coral area, Naples, Port Charlotte, all this area, Pine Island. This would all be completely inundated with water. And I think it was Punta Gorda when Hurricane Ian came in 2 years ago. I intercepted there, and I remember Fort Myers just got absolutely inundated. Yeah. So here's Punta Gorda right here. I mean, that eye pretty much came right over Punta Gorda, and then Fort Myers and all this area right here was right on the side of the eye wall, and those water just came rushing up through here, and it just completely inundated it. So it wasn't a good situation for anybody. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see, and hopefully we'll be able to live stream some of the actual landfall depending on what time it makes landfall. I'm going to most likely be busy that day working, so we'll have to see if we're able to live stream there. But you can see that before it hits landfall right now, they're predicting right off the coast it's as a Category 3 here. Major Category 3, max sustained winds 105, wind gusts up to 130 miles an hour. That still puts it as a major hurricane. So the truth is, rather this gets to a Cat 4, Cat 3, I mean, the outcomes are not going to be too much of a difference, right? I mean, that's storm surge is pretty much going to be the same. But like I said, the important trend we're going to have to look at going into the future is where this track ends up tracking, where it ends up making landfall, right? Because, here's the center down here. If this thing goes more north, we're probably going to have a weaker storm, right? More wind shear up here. and a lot more dry air. If this thing somehow continues tracking more south, like way down here, we could have a stronger storm, right? But at the end of the day, the outcomes are going to be the same. It's going to be absolutely devastating. Let's go ahead and take a look at the GEFS ensemble models. And this is going to kind of show us an idea of where the center of the storm could go and where a whole bunch of different computer models think it could go, right? This is as of 18Z, latest model outlook. And let's go ahead and put this into motion here, right? So let's go to tomorrow afternoon. Pretty good idea. I mean, they're all pretty clustered. They're all pretty centered around where the National Hurricane Center has it now. And it's really not until about Wednesday. And one other thing I want to note is the speed of this storm, because that's also how fast this storm moves is also going to make a big difference on where it can make landfall, right? If it's a lot slower of a storm, I think it might go a little bit more north. If it's a lot faster, it might be going a little bit more south. So it's really just going to come down to the speed and the location and what we have to look for. But once we get closer to landfall, which, matter of fact, a lot of these models actually have it hitting a little bit later, like Thursday into Friday. Because you can see there's actually still a pretty good loop, and some even have it back here. Like this is Friday, 0Z on Friday, and you still have a couple models way back here. Still not even close to Florida. Some just making landfall late Friday night to early Friday morning. You've got this one straggler that's probably going to be an outlier there. Not as strong, but that's pretty much the scenario. And another thing that I want to touch on before we end this live stream and a little bit later on is that the potential of another hurricane. I know we're still a lot far out, but there is a potential that we could see another storm system after this one passes Florida yet again come form up down here in the Caribbean or near the Yucatan Peninsula and curve around and hit Florida as a major hurricane again. Like I said, I'm not saying this to scare people. I'm not saying this. I don't want everyone to start freaking out. Like I said, we're still 1 to 2 weeks out from that. So a lot of things are going to change. This could completely disappear, but it's caught my attention just because of the fact that it's been consistent for the last week on a lot of model runs after this storm. So it's something that we're definitely going to have to watch out for. But let's go ahead and talk about the other variable that I think is going to affect this storm, which is the wind shear. Okay, we talked about the dry air, depending on if it can rapidly intensify and get a tight core, and it can block out that dry air and stay stronger longer, we could have a stronger impact. We could have a stronger landfall, right? Maybe a Cat 4 upon landfall instead of a Cat 3. But we're going to take a look at the GFS model first here. And this is going to be, we're on the 12Z. Let's go to 18Z here. All right. This is the 12Z model. Let's go ahead and go to tomorrow, right? So, or actually, let's go to Tuesday. Here we go. So this is interesting because, like I said, the GFS is a little more, is preserving itself this time. It's not going all out. It's not calling for a Hail Mary. It's staying conservative this time. All right. And this is going to be Tuesday, later on in Tuesday. The GFS model thinks that we're going to have a 955 millibar hurricane sitting just off the coast of the Yucatan. And honestly, this is going to get pretty close. This is going to get pretty darn close to the northern Yucatan. They're definitely going to feel the effects. They're going to get some wind, rain. Do I think this is going to make a direct landfall in Yucatan? No, I do not. I don't think this is going to make landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula. If that was the case, then we'd have a whole other different ballpark on our hands, and then Florida probably definitely wouldn't have too much to concern about. But let's go ahead and continue moving this forward. Like I said, 955 on Tuesday. This is roughly about a Category 3, high-end Category 2. All right, we keep moving this forward. It actually starts weakening. 964, 961, 958. Then it starts strengthening again. 954. It starts pulling it more north. 952, 959 right before landfall. And then boom, just absolutely slingshots into the middle within like not even half a day and starts rapidly weakening. And like I said, this is more of a northern track. This one's taking it more north of Tampa Bay, right? And this would be a roughly about a high in Cat 2 at landfall, a little bit weaker, maybe low in Cat 3. But like I said, this would still be very devastating for the Tampa Bay area because they're going to be on that southern eastern eye wall. Winds are going to be wrapping around, throwing in all that surge, building it up in that bay, and we're talking 12, 15 foot storm surge most likely, if not higher. And, especially if this makes a direct impact. And we can kind of see here, and this is, like I said, the wind shear is another variable. If we go ahead and take a sound in here, right, we can see wind shear. I mean, Jesus, look at that. No wonder it rapidly weakens, like right at landfall. I mean, 58 knots of shear upon landfall. I mean, that would rip any hurricane apart. I mean, I don't care if it's a Cat 4, Cat 5. That is some strong shear right there. And obviously, this is one model. Things are going to change. Don't look at this. Don't look at any of these models I'm showing you and get too caught up in them. Be like, oh, I live right there. That's what's going to happen. We need to prepare for this. I think everyone along the coast of Florida needs to be preparing for a Category 5 hurricane, the worst case scenario. Okay, you need to prepare as if a Cat 5 was coming towards you right now, because it's better to be safe than sorry, and it's better to prepare for the worst case scenario than at the last minute, all of a sudden, for some reason, shear just dies out, and it just, all bets are off at that point. You're a Cat 5 hurricane with 25-foot storm surge is knocking on your doorstep, because we've seen some interesting things happen in the Gulf of Mexico. Let's just be honest, all right? We've seen some very weird things happen. But let's go and take a look at the HAFS model. This is a hurricane-specific guidance model. This one actually did pretty good during Hurricane Helene. Was pretty accurate. So let's go ahead and backtrack this all the way to today's Sunday. Let's go ahead and go to the 18Z here. And, all right, let's go to tomorrow. Right, Monday evening down to a 967. Let's go all the way until Tuesday. Right, we're down to big difference in the GFS now. See this? North of the Yucatan Peninsula, we're down to a 920, right? And this thing's been pretty consistent. So the HAFSA model has consistently showed a major Category 4 or 5 hurricane sitting north of the Yucatan Peninsula, just absolutely ripping, winds over 180 miles an hour. I think this is more likely to happen. I think this is very possible, okay, because there's not too much wind shear down here. There's not a lot of dry air getting into it yet. All the conditions are just right. So I do think it's very possible that there could be a Cat 4 or Cat 5 sitting right off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula come Tuesday and Wednesday. But let's go ahead and throw this into motion. Let's actually grab a sounding down here real quick. So yeah, not too much wind shear, about 12 knots, max 14 knots. It's there's a little bit down there, but not much, right? Not much compared to on the coast. Now, let's go continue. We're down to a 918. Starts weakening, 924, 927, 920. It's weird because there's like a spot in the Gulf of Mexico right here, right after it gets past the Yucatan, it starts weakening, and there's like maybe a brief window where it starts strengthening again. It's weird. It's like with all models, it's been doing that. We're down to a 934. This is Wednesday going into Thursday, 941. Here's Tampa Bay right here. Cape Coral is right down here. Here's the center, 949. Major hurricane, making a beeline straight for Florida. And boom. So right upon landfall, we're looking at about a 958. All right. Again, just north of the Tampa Bay. And this is important because a lot of models keep wanting to pull this thing north, regardless of what the guidance says, right? Every outlook the National Hurricane Center comes out with, they want to keep taking this thing more south, more south. They initially had it north, but they want to keep taking it more south. I think that this thing has a better opportunity to go more north of the Tampa Bay. I think this has an opportunity to potentially make a direct impact into Tampa. Like I said, that's just something we're going to have to keep a close eye on. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's been consistent in the models. Let's go ahead and get another pressure reading here. And we can see, look at that. Max shear, 68 knots, shear 59 knots. I mean, that's a lot of shear, right? It goes from a 958, 962, 977, 980, 986. Look at that. I mean, 988. It's back in the water, but it's still weakening because, again, lots of shear, 44 knots, right? A lot of people might look at that. It's in the water. Why is it not strengthening? Waters are warm. I'm like, yeah, you can have warm waters, no dry air, but if that shear, it displaces the center of these storms and it kills them. So that might be one of the saving graces that this thing doesn't slam the coast of Florida as a Cat 5. Let's go ahead and take a look at the HMON model here, and this one did pretty decent. This is not necessarily one of my favorite models, but we're going to look at it because it's one of the models available, and it's important to look at all the models and see all the possible outcomes and what they have to offer here. So let's go ahead and go back to Tuesday. Yep, here we go. Tuesday, just north of the Yucatan Peninsula, has a little bit weaker. And mind you, too, this one actually has the track a little bit further north of the Yucatan Peninsula, right? The HAFS had it a little bit closer, I believe. Let's see. Yeah. So just a little bit closer to the Yucatan Peninsula, and actually a smaller storm. That's another thing we got to watch for too. Like this one has a very, very compact, tight hurricane, and the HMON has a very broad, more large hurricane. And I think that upon landfall and weakening, I think that it's going to expand as well. And I think that the wind field is going to go bigger. So, and that's going to allow the impacts to be a lot greater. So even if we have a weakening storm upon landfall to the approach of the Florida coast, most likely it is still going to go from a small storm to expanding out. So even though Cat 4, Cat 5 winds are slowly degrading, right, are slowly diminishing, we're still going to have that expansion of those inner core winds flaring out from the center a lot further. So there's going to be a lot more people getting impacted in northern, southern Florida. So that's something that we're going to have to watch. But back to the HMON model, right? This one has a 926 millibar major hurricane, pretty much a Cat 5, just north of the Yucatan Peninsula. Little bit. This one's actually a little bit stronger than the HFS model. All right, a little bit stronger, but a little bit bigger, which is interesting. But let's go ahead and take this in motion here, right? We're Wednesday. We're down to a 921, 915, 917, 922, right? We start getting close to the coast. Here we go. All right, we are Thursday, October 10th, which is interesting because if we go back and look at the HFS, right? So let's go ahead and put the HFS model, and let's go ahead and put it right back here, okay? So a lot of these models show it making landfall a lot later than what the National Hurricane Center is saying. All right, National Hurricane Center is saying it's going to make landfall Wednesday. A lot of models are showing it's going to make landfall Thursday, and it also shows it's going to make landfall a lot more northern. So that's another trend that we're going to have to watch. But here we are, 06Z Thursday, right? Early Thursday. This thing's coming in hot. This one's actually a little bit more north than the HAF model, and we've got a 971, right? Look how fast it weakens, right? It goes from like a category 5 in less than a day all the way to, I mean, honestly, like a low in Cat 2. This one has a 971 millibar, 980 upon landfall, right? And it just completely falls apart. Like, I mean, look at that, almost like 1,000 millibar low pressure system back to a tropical depression by the time it comes off the coast of Florida. So, like I said, this is why I like to look at all the models, because there's so many variables, and I hate the forecasters and so many people on social media and TikTok, and they'll be out there and they'll post all this stuff saying that, oh, there's a Cat 4, a Cat 5 coming. Everybody needs to get prepared. It's going to destroy the coast of Florida. Yes, there's definitely most likely going to be a Category 4 or a Category 5 hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. All right. Now, do I think that it's going to be that of magnitude when it makes landfall? Most likely not. Like I said, they're not. A lot of people aren't talking about the factors of what could actually weaken this and what can prevent it from actually making landfall as a major hurricane. They're just looking at, what everyone else is saying and what the news companies are saying and be like, look, it's going to be this, yada, 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 but they're not actually going in detail. They're not going into facts, You got to talk about the detail. If not, you're just going to scare people. I think it's important to be prepared at the same time. Prepare as if there's a Cat 5 hurricane coming. Don't sit here and be like, well, they're saying that this and this, and I've lived in this area for 50 years, and I've never seen anything happen. Trust me, there's a first for everything, right? Like the Tampa area in the last 100 years has not seen a direct hit of a hurricane, meaning the eye coming directly over Tampa. Do I think it could happen this time? Oh, yes. I mean, the models are in between Tampa Bay. It could easily come into Tampa Bay as a Cat 3, Cat 4. But what we're seeing in the model data as of right now is back and forth, right? Like I said, this specific model, which these two models, the HAFS model and the HMON model, are both hurricane models. They do very well when tracking these hurricanes, and both have two different outcomes, right? This one has a stronger hurricane. This one has about a high in Cat 2, low in Cat 3, just north of Tampa, right, on Thursday. This one right here has, barely a Category 1, Category 2 barely. right? On Thursday coming in. So big difference. But at the end of the day, if this were to hit, right, as a category 3 or a category 2, the storm surge is still going to be significant, right? Because Tampa Bay is going to be on the north side of this eye wall. So you're going to have the winds going like this, right? Pushing in all that water into the bay, building up, building up, building up, building up, right? So if this happened, we could say, all right, Tampa Bay is going to have the worst surge. Everyone there needs to, on the immediate coastline, needs to evacuate. But that's something that we will start talking about as we get closer, right? I'm not going to sit here and say, well, model's showing this, everyone in Tampa Bay evacuate. Be prepared, right? Because if this consistently starts showing it over the next couple of days as we get closer and closer, at that point, yeah, get out. Like, models are consistently showing it. This is what it's been showing. They're not going back and forth right now. Every single model run is showing this consistently. So it's time to get out now. It's time to prepare. Take what you need to take. Board up the windows. Get the sandbags. Whatever you need to do. It's coming in hot, right? So that's pretty much it as far as Hurricane Milton. There's not too much, more data to go over as of right now. Like I said, I'll be making more videos coming up about Hurricane Milton in the future here over the next couple of days. We've got to wait for more data and aircraft recon to come in and see what they say about the storm. Like I said, I really want to touch upon the fact that after Hurricane Milton, we're definitely going to have to watch out for another possibility of something brewing up in the tropics down in the Yucatan Peninsula and down in the Caribbean. This model specifically, you can see. So let's go ahead and back this track. This is an ensembles, right? Just kind of shows a whole bunch of different members of what they think is going to happen, where they think it's going to go, right? Here's Hurricane Milton. This is Wednesday, October the 9th. Let's go Thursday. Boom. 90% of them making landfall on Thursday or Friday, right? Let's keep going. We're on Saturday. Sunday, October 13th. Now watch down here, right? Watch right down here in the Yucatan. October the 13th, 14th. Boom. Look at this. Look at that right there. We're already starting to have some members fire up near the Yucatan down here, splitting the gap right here. This is October 15th. Like I said, don't take this for a grain of salt, because we're October 6th. This is over a week out, so this is gonna change. All right, don't look at this and be like, oh, I'm right there on the side. Shoot, we're gonna get a massive hurricane. No, it's not gonna happen. All right, we're not gonna talk about that. But you can see here, we continue putting in motion. Tuesday, October 15th. Look at this, splitting the gap. Very strong members starting to come together. And, yeah, I mean, look at that, coming straight for Florida. We got a couple stragglers, a couple more systems coming in, and just starts absolutely blowing out here in the Atlantic at the end of October. But I think at the end of October, it's actually going to be interesting, because we're going to have to be looking out for snow, especially in the north. That's another thing we're going to be talking about eventually too, believe it or not. Colorado, New Mexico up here, Kansas is going to get probably their first pretty good snow of the season coming up at the end of October, probably around the 16th through the 20th. So if you're in Kansas, Colorado, New Mexico, watch out for that. Definitely looking for some snow up there. But let's see. Let's go ahead and go to, I guess we can look at the long range GFS model here. Let's go to forecast models. Let's see if it shows anything on that. Let's go out here. Yep, there we go. Boom. So let's go to regions. And October the 15th, right? There's our system down there coming up. And this one actually kind of totally misses Florida. Scrapes right by the Keys as maybe a Cat 2 and then just shoots off. So, like I said, we'll have to watch it, see what happens. But that is pretty much going to conclude it for today's live stream. If y'all have any comments, comment down below. Let me know. And we will be live streaming. Oops, I did not see this comment. Do you think it could go far up northwest Florida? Like I said, I think it's a possibility. I really do. I think it going towards any part of Florida needs to keep an eye on it. Like, it's really going to depend. It's still kind of too early to really say where it's going to go, right? But I think anywhere basically from Perry up here, basically Perry points south all the way down to pretty much Fort Myers area, needs to keep an eye on this. All right, if you're in the cone of uncertainty by the National Hurricane Center, you need to be watching this thing, because the center could go up here or the center could go way down here. All right, because there's a lot of variables and there's a lot of things going that are going to affect this storm. So, but That's going to conclude it for today's video. I appreciate everyone that has joined and watched. Like I said, if you like the videos, like them. Don't forget to subscribe. I will be doing more forecasting videos like this. Unfortunately, I will not be able to go out and chase this hurricane, unfortunately. But we'll definitely be doing more storm chasing later on once we're able to. And yeah, stay safe, guys. And we will see y'all in